Hi, this is David with EV World News, where we talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. Today, I'm with our founder, Bill Moore, and a special guest, Tony Jasinski from 7Gen, who's here. We're going to talk a little about commercial fleet leasing. And my big interest in this is what's unique is Tony specializes in just all electric vehicle, large commercial type products, and there's some tie-ins both with that I'm interested in hearing about that have to do both with tax credits and with carbon credits. And it's really quite unique in that there's some things that I see in this. Tony, welcome to our show. Where are you located, Tony?
Thank you. I'm located in Ontario, Canada, just north of a small little city called Toronto.
Nice, nice. I just spent an hour shoveling my driveway this morning in Omaha, Nebraska. So, it was nice and cold, and we don't get very many snows here. So, yeah, you're lucky if you get to snow the driveway twice in a winter. I don't think I even shoveled it last year, So,
Well, yeah, my
yeah,
drive is 600 feet. That's a bit of shoveling.
no. Oh God, that is crazy. Do you have your own snow plow?
Yeah,
Do you have
I
a plow?
do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that to have a plow on the front of your truck or something. Um, so tell me, how did you end up getting with a company that only does EVs for fleet leasing? How'd that come about?
Well, I've spent all of my life in the last mile space. And as you know, the last mile is very important because it's the person that's going to be, that driver is going to be representing your company or product. And I think it's the most important part of any e-commerce in this world. And what I find very, very intriguing is the EV space because it's become so prominent and so much in our face, both Canada and the US. I decided to really take a deep dive into this thing, and I find it very interesting because it's the way the world is going.
Absolutely. So how have you seen, do you get a lot of pushback when you're pushing just, you know, all electric in the last mile space?
Well, I do because the problem with the electric is the distance. Obviously, that's a big major factor in having the stress of your unit running out of power. And then there's also the lack of public facilities. It's not like driving into a gas station and filling up. However, because it's now becoming forefront in both governments, Canadian and American, and there's so many incentives and so much that they're doing to help promote this that it's inevitable, and it's the way of the world. It's the way of the future.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So most of but I know you're a Canadian, but most of your business, I assume, is in the United States.
Yes, I focus heavily on the US. Our company originated in Canada and has a ton of accounts in Canada, but we also have broken into the US, and I'm mainly focusing on New York and California, which is the two high-profile states in the US.
Right, because I'm assuming I don't, so I'm not as well versed in commercial vehicles, as I am with the tax credits on, you know, cars and stuff like that. Because we talk about tax credits on cars all the time on our show. But I know that there's some bigger tax credits, and I know they range anywhere from like $7,500 all the way up to what, 40,000 for federal?
Oh yeah, there's tax credits, and then there's incentives, which further reduce the acquisition costs, and then there are the carbon credits. So there's different types of programs, and they vary by state and they vary by country too.
Nice, nice. So like this, like if you're buying a delivery truck of some sort in California, are you going to get state tax credits, or what does California do as an
So
example?
there are incentives that you can get rebates on the vehicles. For example, if I'm going to go buy a brake shop, and I say that because that's a pretty popular vehicle, and I think it has great mileage. And it's also a GM product, which means you have service, and that's another thing that's important. There's a lot of companies out there, a lot of OEMs The problem that a lot of them have is the service and the maintenance because they're not generally national. They have to find alternative suppliers. But getting back to the tax piece, that is very important. Without those incentives, without those credits, it would be a difficult pill to swallow. I don't see people jumping on it that aggressively. This really accelerates it.
Now, in the heavier vehicle, the cost savings of electric versus gas isn't quite as great. I've noticed that even in like the Tesla trucks, for instance, the fuel savings are essentially about 25%. When we're talking about the Tesla trucks that deliver for Pepsi out in California, because you have that heavy battery combined with just how they're having to charge.
You're correct. I mean, the fuel savings in retrospect is not that great, but then keep in mind that there's the maintenance. You don't have as much maintenance on these vehicles. You have the obviously the fact that they're very quiet, and the drivers that I speak with love it. They just love it. You know, if they have to spend 6, 8 hours in this truck, and it's you know how that motor sounds, and then these guys, it's just quiet, and that says a lot. Not to mention the fact that they're eco-friendly.
Right, right. We had an interview a week ago with a company, Greenland, that makes electric front end loaders and stuff like and excavators. And one of their big things is that on some job sites there might be, say, 3 dozen large heavy equipment running all the time. And when those go from diesel to electric, all of a sudden the job site's really quiet, as opposed to just being, like where you need, ear protection because it's so loud to I'm not saying it's completely silent, but you know what I mean. It's a massive reduction in the output of sound, and also to the surroundings. It really cuts down. Noise pollution isn't something we normally talk about in the EV space. Now maybe you do in the commercial side, but I've known when we're talking about cars, people generally aren't talking about noise pollution. We're talking about, carbon emissions, we're talking about air pollution, things like that. But, you know, EVs are quiet and they keep.
Well, yes, they are, and in retrospect, when you mention construction sites, picture something that we can all relate to: school buses, and
Right.
picture the amount of school buses converging on every day in the morning and in the afternoon, spewing out that diesel exhaust, and all the young kids that are being subjected to that every day. This makes a huge difference because this
Absolutely.
we see, this affects our future generation, and it has an impact. And it's been proven that, you know, when you reduce the diesel, when you go to electric, there is a significant change.
Yeah, let me jump in here. I just posted that the EPA has released 1 billion with a B $1 billion in funding for electrifying school buses, and various communities and states are starting to make application to acquire this. Do those typically are those bought by a leasing company and then leased on a hourly or whatever it is contract basis, or do the school districts buy them? And does that impact your business in any way?
Well, it does because we actually finance the vehicles, we finance the infrastructure, so it has a huge impact. And we deal with generally contractors. The school, authorities or the school departments would then contract carriers, and some are large carriers, some are small, but it's them that provide the vehicles for these school associations. And we're the ones that work with these general contractors.
What are there any efforts? Obviously, because I've seen there's beginning to be a serious push towards utilizing those buses when they're not making that morning and afternoon run to do some vehicle to grid integration. Are you doing anything along that line?
100%. Good point. Excellent point, because that vehicle to grid, or V2G as we shorten it, is really important because they take advantage, and it depends. Some states, some provinces have different rates for power, and they could absorb the power when it's at a lower rate, and they can put it back to the grid when it's a higher rate. When you have a depot that's got 50 to 100 buses, makes a huge difference. Not to mention that if there's any power failures, these buses can power schools or power emergency centers or stuff like that. So it does have a lot of value.
I bet those buses have big batteries. We were talking like 200, 300 kilowatts
Yeah,
hours.
they do. They do have big batteries, and when you talk about batteries, that technology is also improving and changing as we speak.
Every year it improves.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that's one of the things I sometimes Bill gets so on our evworld.com website, which is 26 years old. We get so many articles about this battery tech, this
Sure.
company's doing this with batteries and stuff. And sometimes it's really hard to shake out because one of your things you're going to get is just like the arguments with chargers. Like in cars, it looks like the Tesla NACS charger is going to be the dominant player in North America,
Yes.
and everybody else is going to have to eventually kind of gravitate to it, probably. Maybe not, but it really seems like a lot of your big car makers. But in the battery space, like we recently were talking about sodium ion batteries, and we talked about some other types of batteries other than just lithium ion and the dependence on lithium. And it's interesting kind of to see because we keep hearing, oh, Toyota's about to release an EV with 1,000-mile range, and
Sure.
then on the other side we also hear Toyota's getting out of the EV business. you know so we keep seeing conflicting news and different things, and it's really hard to see where the market leads are going to be. In the electric school bus space, what have you seen? Which companies have the demand right now?
Well, there's a handful of companies that are in the school bus space. And because, as Bill just mentioned, the $1 billion that have been set aside, it's really ramping up right now. And I've noticed that some of the OEMs that were not normally in that business are starting to migrate to the school bus business because of such a huge demand and because of the huge incentives that are being placed right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
so I was what, Bluebird,
Yeah.
New
Bluebird
Flyer.
Thomas,
Yeah,
Bluebird Thomas, and
did the
Lion
Proterra,
Electric.
yeah, did the Proterra collapse impact you or any of your customers?
No, not really. I mean, there's enough out there that it had an impact, but it didn't affect our business.
Okay. What besides the school buses, what type of vehicles are you leasing into? What kinds of businesses typically?
Well, anything from class one, which is your very light
Right.
van, to a class eight, which is of course your semis,
Semis,
your
yeah.
big box trucks, right? Of those. So, and our focus mainly, we have a lot of business with the courier industry, as you can imagine, because it's those guys that are out there delivering every single day, and especially in the city centers where a lot of the cities, and I'll cite New York, they
Yeah.
have some really heavy idling laws. And, there are a few companies that I'm right now working with that are just getting hammered on these idling laws because of the nature of their business. They can't
Yeah.
shut the vehicle off. And, to add insult to injury, any common citizen can, take out his camera, film a vehicle for 3 minutes and $80 in his pocket for every video he throws in. So
Yeah.
they have these, vigilantes that are out there to enforce this, right?
Right.
So it's a challenge, but it's that industry, the delivery industry, that is heavily impacted. I mean, those are the guys that are out there delivering all day long.
Yeah. So it's a wide range. So you buy the vehicles, and I'm assuming these are, well, there we go. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. So these are the typical types of vehicles that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, these are a lot of OEMs that have reached out to me, or I've reached out to them, and they've asked to be part of the network that I'm promoting. And you can see, and it, I've highlighted kind of the important things, which is the mileage that these vehicles get, and the weight that they can take.
Yeah. Is there, I assume that you obviously you have, when talking to a client, you say, all right, how many miles does your typical driver do in a day? Is that part of that equation? And what are you hearing from them?
Yeah, we have a very quick form that we send out, you know, what kind of mileage you're doing, what climate conditions are you in, what kind of weight are you looking to, you know, bring into this vehicle, where is it parked, how many hours is it running, how many hours do you need to charge it, because that makes a big difference. You need a level 1 charger, level 2, level 3, you know, and the higher up, the quicker it charges. Does your facility have the power to support that kind of network? So there's a lot involved in helping these people to make sure they get the right vehicle, the right charger for the amount of business that they're doing. And that's what we do is we go through all of that intensive work and provide them with a final solution, one price that covers everything, the vehicle, the electric network. And what we're talking about earlier is the carbon credits. You need to track that. You need to be able to responsibly report it and sell it at the end of the month. That's what we do. We combine all the carbon credits of our clients, and we, you know, they're like similar to stock market. Every single month, the price goes up and down, and we sell and divide it proportionately.
Okay. Typically, who are the people buying the credits? That's kind of interesting.
Well, it's a government agency that this is being dealt, and I guess there are companies that are required to have a reduction, and they're the ones that would be buying it to deal with their demand or what they're forced to do. Right.
So if my company was going to lease, you know, we were going to decommission a diesel truck, and let's say I have a yard. I just, you know, I've got a transportation yard. I need to move trailers around the yard. Okay, we're not going over the road, because there's always a big thing. It's like, you know, I know that a diesel powered tractor trailer can go 1,300 miles when it's fully gassed up. Okay, I'm aware of this, and none of the EVs can do more than 500 miles yet. Okay, but like I take this Peterbilt that you've got on your slide. You know, it's got a 565 kilowatt hour battery, 155 mile per hour, 155 mile range. Okay, on that battery. That is a big battery. you know, you figure the big battery in some of the Teslas, 100 kilowatt hour. This is almost 6 of those.
Yeah.
You know, that's massive. But do you have any idea and I don't know what would a one of these Class 8s, what would one of these sell for? And that is, we're not talking about the leasing side, but I'm assuming these are something between $150,000-$200,000.
Oh, a lot more than
More?
that. They could be in the 300,000, even 400,000 range. But then
Mhm.
again, the government incentives, they could be as high as 150,000 as a government incentive. Plus, then on top of that, there is the other type of incentives that you can get in the carbon credits and the tax incentives. And again, it differs between states. And if you're
So,
talking about yard tractors, I think the next slide or 2 slides over, there's a specific slide that deals with yard tractors, you know, the vehicles that never leave the yard, they're just doing a lot of shunting. You'll see that there are a lot of yard tractors available in the market that are designed specific. There you go, right there.
there we go.
So there are a lot of suppliers right now. And these you look at hours, right? Because they're not traveling
Right.
far. It's in the yard. So now you're looking at how many hours can I have this thing shunting out there? And how long does it take to boost it up again, right? That's important.
When we were talking to the Greenland folks, that's how they were measuring their tractors, as being 8 to 9 hours,
Yeah.
as opposed, but they had a 300 and what was it? Wasn't it 380 kilowatt hour, or no, 280 kilowatt hours?
Yeah.
280 kilowatt hours on a excavator, and they said it would last 8 to 9 hours on the job site. But they are only pushing their stuff for yard use. They're
That's
not
right.
pushing their stuff for taking it out onto a construction site or doing roads or things like that. So they were very limited in what they were offering. Oh, we
Yeah.
got some other
That's
things here
very
too.
important, that I like this part, and it doesn't get a lot of publicity, but it's really important because in the city centers, direct, like downtown Manhattan,
Hmm.
LA, these little guys can do a lot of deliveries in a small, dense area. And there are a lot of retailers today, like, for example, if you look at a Sephora, if you look, at a Zara, they're insisting that their carrier networks that are operating in city centers go electric. And these little guys that you see out there are pretty darn efficient. Plus, you can park them at local parking lots that provide charging. You can set up contracts with, the last parkings of the world. Have these guys park overnight and charge, and your couriers show up in the daytime, go above ground. A truck drives by and does these drops to all of these bikes, and away they go. So they're really good, really efficient. And some of them can take advantage of bike lanes, and some of them can take advantage of parking on the street where you couldn't park a vehicle, because there's also that restrictions that are happening now.
Yeah, that
How do you are you familiar? I've always been curious about this. Being a longtime electric bike rider, I've been riding electric bikes for just about as long as I've been publishing EV World. What kind of reaction do you get from the guys that are these typical? I can't see these typically being a UPS driver. These have
Well,
got to be sort of younger, fitter, Gen Z maybe.
well, I hate to tell you this, but UPS actually has some of these on the road.
Oh yeah, I know
Um,
they do. Yeah.
and Purolator in Canada, FedEx is using them right now. DHL is using them right now. So I got to tell you, because they're battery assisted, it's really not that bad.
oh wow.
Yeah, that's uh, I love the idea. I really do, because I've been in the middle of Manhattan traffic before, so I can appreciate what the capabilities of something like this. Although obviously there's been some issues of late with lithium battery fires and things like that. So I haven't heard that that's been a problem with any of these type of vehicles, though.
No, no, there has not that I've heard of. But even if you look at the little guy at the bottom right, Dutch Xer, he's got that container on the back. I mean, this is what I call really cool micro fulfillment, because these bikes will fold up and park underground very easily. The
Yeah.
guys show up on top, and an electric powered box truck will show up with the tailgate, drop these containers down on these bikes. They have a mobile app. Everything is sorted to route, and all they do is pedal away and stop off at the commercial buildings and the major city centers and just start dropping these packages off. Go back, exchange containers, and continue on. Great,
Oh,
great
that's brilliant. Yeah,
technology.
really.
Yeah, I
love
don't see these replacing postal jeeps. I've had a couple of friends who took jobs as postal delivery people here in Omaha, and Omaha has really low car insurance rates, which tells you we don't have a high rate of accidents. But they were upset because their postal jeeps kept getting hit by people. People were constantly backing into them or just different things. It wasn't high speed accidents, but people were constantly hitting
Yeah.
their vehicles, like at least every 6 months that they were in an accident. And it was really strange to think. I guess it's because there was a vehicle where somebody didn't expect it. But this is all very fascinating because you cover a very wide range
Yeah,
of.
I'm amazed. How did you give us a little bit of history? Is this the company you started? You came to work for it, and how did you
No,
evolve into
I,
such a wide
I,
range?
they solicited me actually because my focus is sales, and I'm what they call in the sales terminology a hunter.
Okay.
So I open doors,
Okay.
and I'm an excessive LinkedIn user. I have north of 16,000 followers. So you know I love the space. These guys had this piece of business that they were launching, And, I came up with this idea because I've yet to see anything out there that sort of does what I just did, is give the public an opportunity to look at everything and look at some of the key points. And the reason that I think it really worked is the first time I published this, because this is version 3 that you're looking at. Version 1 had over 150,000 views in less than a week. This
Wow.
version here, it's been up, I think, for 7 days now, and I've got over 38,000 views and
Excellent.
several hundred likes. So I know it works. And I've had people contact me and say, tell me more. Let's talk, right? And it makes a difference. And, one of the things that I did in this particular post on the first page, when I did my, few sentences of discussion, I put the hashtags in there, and the hashtags represent everything that people will ask about EVs. And that helps.
That's great. That's great. I'm curious, what kind of demand do you see for the low speed vehicles? Because you have quite a few. You have 6 on here for the low speed trucks, and you've got a three-wheeler on there.
See, the low speed have a great advantage for the university campuses.
Mhm.
They're obviously used there. The golf courses are a no-brainer, but that's been around forever. But also in the city centers, again, where you have weather conditions that are not conducive to an e-bike, but still you want to be e-friendly. So these low-speed vehicles work well because they're not going to go over 30 miles an hour in the city anyhow. Lucky
Right.
if you even reach that speed in the city.
Yeah, well, the one company that was on there that I introduced you to, their whole plan is to mainly market those in
Yeah.
coastal cities that are resort communities. And so their primary purpose is using them in the coastal communities that don't ever exceed 35 miles per hour in the whole town,
Correct.
and so that's a little bit different. Now, I asked you this before you came on a little bit. This is kind of odd. The carbon credits are a big thing to me because it's really interesting to see where this scenario goes. And what have you had any scenarios you could walk us through where somebody's gone through, they've gotten a vehicle, they've gotten the federal tax credit, they've gotten a state tax credit, and they've gotten a carbon credit?
Yeah. So, we have one customer, and I keep promoting this. He has 10 box trucks, which would be your typical class 5, class 6.
Mhm.
They put on approximately 100 miles, 150 miles a day. He's running these 5 days a week. So think of it, 10 trucks, 5 days a week. And on a monthly basis, he gets a carbon credit check, or we reduce his payment by approximately $5,000 per month. That's not bad
So
for
he has
10
10
vehicles.
trucks, so he's getting about $500 a month per vehicle on these class 5s.
Yeah, yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
yeah.
Um,
So it makes
and
sense.
now you were mentioning like this workhorse that's on here. That is that what you would call a bread truck that you mentioned earlier? Or no, you said a bright truck.
Oh
Bright
no,
drop.
I said Bright Drop. Bright Drop
Yeah,
would have
bright
been
drop.
the class 3 on the first page. I think I
Oh,
had the
okay.
Bright Drop there.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
GM
that's the
product.
GM vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. But I would assume something like this workhorse vehicle would be super common.
Yes. It's your typical step van, boxy truck. Yeah, it's like a
Mhm.
Bright Drop.
Nice, nice. What's your opinion about Workhorse? They were one of those companies that, I think a lot of us thought they were going to get that big postal contract a year or so back, and then they didn't. And that went to Oshkosh Defense, I think. And I'm just curious, do you see much of the Workhorse product in the marketplace?
I don't, and quite frankly, I'm a little concerned. I don't want to say anything negative because,
No, no, no. I don't. I'm not trying to
but I am
put
concerned.
a
I am concerned about where they're going.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot on the show. I think a lot of the EV business is quite fragile, And a lot of it, as you're saying, a lot of it does require, in order to electrify things, governments have to help stimulate things. And so the governments have to help with stimulating infrastructure. And this is always the way things have been. I mean, you have tax incentives for real estate, so people will keep building more apartments. You have tax incentives for a lot of different things, and this is how the government tries to push that it helps different types of social agendas and stuff like this. Now, um, then so it's interesting because it's like I like to see these companies succeed, and sometimes I'm just concerned. I also constantly look at a lot of their stocks. It seems like a lot of the EV companies have had horrific experiences in the stock market because of this thing called naked short selling. And it seems like almost every EV company exec I ever talked to or whatever, they've all been a victim of it.
Yeah,
And
and you're right. And the most recent one, have you heard of Lightning Motors?
yes,
Yeah, so Lightning Motors was on my first deck, and then it has gone into receivership. And Lightning Motors was a significantly large company. They had a lot of vehicles out there. The class three, they had buses out there, and they're in receivership now. That's scary.
you'd think this would be a pretty solid business because it's not like trucking is going away,
Correct.
you know. Um, and so I often wonder because to me the only thing we're really doing different, we just have a different drivetrain. We're just getting people to change drivetrains. It's not like we're
Exactly.
changing the way people really do business. As far as the driver is concerned, it's the same thing, right? I mean, it's not like he's having to really learn, some new skill to drive one of these. It's, they're basically doing the same thing. The only thing it's affecting is, drivetrain and, you know, uh, obviously, I think a lot of the electric vehicles are probably more expensive than their diesel counterparts, but that's one of the reasons I'm assuming the tax incentives kind of bring them back into line.
Yeah. So you mentioned drive. So our company also provides driver training. There is a bit of a learning curve, in terms of keeping it hot or keeping it cold, depending on the temperature of where you're driving at the time. So there is that bit of a learning curve. If you have a vehicle that's completely open, you don't have a dividing wall, and you're subject to either extreme heat or extreme cold, you have to learn how to deal with those things. So that's, just throwing it out there that there is a small driver training piece that we offer. And then you mentioned, the chassis, the body. One thing we haven't talked about is refitting. And there are companies out there that will take vehicles that are ICE and convert them into EV. And that's a whole new market. Now, would I do that to a Ford van? No. But if I had a class five or class six truck that I needed to do an extensive retrofit on that chassis, for example, security companies, the
Hmm?
Brinks and the Gardas of the world, that upfit could cost as much as the chassis. So, in cases like that where companies have spent a lot of money to upfit the vehicle, it might just make sense to, pull out the ICE and put the EV in there. And there are incentives for that. And there are carbon credits, and everything else falls in place. So that's another part of the EV world that hasn't really been brought up a lot, but it's there. It exists. And it's not bad.
We have a company here in Omaha that takes, I think it's Kenworth tractors, and they retrofit them from diesel to electric, but then they convert them to box trucks.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're not leaving them as over the road vehicles, but they're doing that. Um, and they're, not it's not a well-known company, that's for sure. But I know they're owned by Principal Solar, and which is an OTC stock. And but I don't know much about their operation. I just happen to know they're here local to us. But you could do a lot of other things besides just, you know, leasing and stuff like that. You guys also deal with charging infrastructure,
Yes.
maintenance. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, some of the things 7 Gen offers?
So, what we do, as I said, we give you the whole package. So we'll supply you with the vehicle that fits best and the charger. We support you, during the whole course of the lease with a 24/7 1-800 number that you can call, whether you have vehicle problems or charger problems. So you have a 1-800 number that we support you on, which helps a lot because some companies buy vehicles and then they have to deal with that entity. Then they buy a charger from a different. They have to deal with that separately. And and if you have different types of OEMs, then you have multiple people that you have to call. It's nice that we provide that all under one package, so you can have Ford, BrightDrop, Peterborough, Freightliner. Doesn't matter. Any one of your vehicles, go down, give us a call. We'll deal with it. And I think that helps a lot. Plus, on top of that, the dashboards, what we do is we make sure that we give you one dashboard that covers everything instead of, okay, I got to open up the Ford dashboard. Now I got to open up the Bright dashboard. And now I got to open up the dashboard for the charger. And it becomes a bit of a mess. We provide that all under one. So you now have everything on one screen. You can see how your vehicles are performing, how your chargers are performing. We can tell you whether they're underperforming, whether you need to get more because they're being overutilized, how you might want to charge. Generally drivers will come in after their shift, plug in. Do you want to start to charge that vehicle now, or do you want to start charging it at 2 in the morning when the cost of power is down? And you only need 4 hours. You don't need it for 8 hours. So there's a lot of these little nuances that we support that really help, companies to get the best out of the EV world that is available.
Are you seeing any advantage from the technology of the EVs versus the ICE cars that in this? Is there any advantage to what you're talking about there over the diesel?
Well, there's the advantage is that you have a lot of control over how these vehicles are performing because of the technology that's been put into them. It gives you a really good screenshot of what's going on and how things are happening and how your drivers are performing, how they're being routed. It really makes a huge difference with the EVs because of the tech that's in there that they need to monitor the vitals.
Now, one of your things that you had sent me a deck and you have this slide. I'm going to share this if I can figure out how. You have this decarbonization roadmap. And
Yes.
do you want to explain this where we would start? I guess it would be down here, the evaluation of existing fleet and operations, right?
Yeah. So as I said, what we do is we work with companies to determine what you need, what's the best solution for you. And once we decide what that solution is, how do you want to handle it? Do you want to pay it up front? Do you want to have it with a residual value at the end? Do you want to lease it? Do you want to own it outright at the end? So we work with you to determine what works best for you. Is this a capex? Is it an opex expense? We provide you with the best solution that your business needs you to do to make this thing work. So, this whole path, as I said, it has all these little tentacles that are part of the big picture. And what we do is bring all of these out to you, make you aware of them all, and then at the end come up with a combined solution. And even the site itself. Where are you going to park these vehicles? Are you going to park them? Are the drivers going to take them home and park them? Do you need to park them at a location that is not your main station? Do you need to park them, 10, 15 miles away? We can also help you find suitable locations if your own home base is not what will work. We have one customer that does work for Amazon, and he has 10 vehicles that he parks roughly 2 miles away from the Amazon DC. His business office is 15 miles away, but he doesn't need the drivers to leave his business office, drive 15 miles to the Amazon distribution center, And at the end of the shift, drive 15 miles back. So we also support them by providing alternate locations. We work with companies that are willing to and have the power to lease space so that these drivers can park overnight during the daytime. They can make them open to the public and they can make revenue off of that. So you can see there's a lot of different nuances in this business.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those are things people don't ever
Yeah,
really think about too much.
exactly. And 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes times 10, 15 drivers, 5 days a week, it adds up.
No, that's fascinating. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, Tony?
No, I just, I'm really grateful, and I appreciate that you reached out and that we're able to have this call, and whoever will be participating or having a look at this call will understand that the EV space, it's happening. You need to understand it's going to happen to you, whether it's today, tomorrow, a year, 5 years, it will happen. And I encourage people, you don't have to start with 10 vehicles, start with one. Get used to it, understand the process, and then look at, expanding as you see fit. And again, I really, really appreciate everything that you've done and allowed me to speak my mind. Maybe I spoke too much today, but
No,
I
that's great.
appreciate that. And I'm grateful for the time that you've given me. Really, really grateful.
No, we appreciate you coming on. This is something that it's different content than what we normally talk about. And, I've been trying to explore other parts. I guess our
Yeah.
next stuff, we need to get somebody in here that does electric planes, and we need to get somebody in here that does electric boats.
I can arrange that.
No, I know. It's just we we specialize, most of the time people thinking about cars and
I just got my first electric aircraft yesterday.
Oh, you got it.
Little tiny drone about that big.
Does it have a 1 kilowatt hour battery?
No, it's got, I think, a 750 milliwatt.
Oh, wow. So it's 3/4 of a kilowatt?
Yeah. Oh, no, even smaller than that.
Oh, is it?
It's just a little tiny, it's a little tiny drone for playing
Actually,
around.
it's funny that you mentioned that, Bill, because on my next deck, I'm going to have a section for drones and autonomous vehicles, the guys that you see on the road, not those little buggies that you can kick them over with your foot.
Right.
The serious type. So
well, I read
like
that, I can't
Predators?
remember the company, but one of the companies that's exploring autonomous over the road, class 8s, they're apparently going to pull their co-pilots off. They're going to go strictly autonomous here shortly.
Yeah,
So,
that company is called Gatic, and they have a lot of trucks with the 5 tons running for, I think Walmart. And I know that, and I know they've got some in Canada also running. The only problem is that they're still ICE. And I'm trying to keep it to electric.
Oh,
right?
no, I didn't know that. I thought they were running EVs too, but they're doing ICE. Okay.
Yes.
All right, well, guys, Tony, I really appreciate you coming on here. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for today. If people have comments or questions, please put them in the chat, and please like this video so that it'll get shown to more people. And
tune into the
that's all we
channel.
got for
Push
today.
that subscribe button.
Yeah, well, we